Oh, bit of
Oh,
cricket. What's going
even
on?
worse, mate. He's got cricket on.
Yeah. Me and Justin were talking about a good bit of shooting earlier, a bit Clays, and you're watching the cricket,
You're
Chris.
watching
What's going on?
cricket.
Don't know what's going on with that.
Unreal, mate.
Okay, what I'm going to do, Justin, I'll just keep admitting people as they come on, and we'll
Yeah.
we'll dive into it. Thanks for joining, everyone. Again, it's a Friday afternoon, and it kind of makes the difference that everyone's here. Everyone could be doing other things, but they're not. We're willing to be here and learn from Justin, his experiences, and what we can take away. So, Justin, as always, if you could just give a bit of background. Everyone's kind of, I imagine, would have looked at your profile and understand, and I've certainly seen the Hulk. The good old Hulk, but just give us a bit of a background to what you do and where it is you are now, and just an overview.
Okay, so first off, hi, I'm Justin. Thanks for joining us and wanting to listen to what I've got to say. So I will start off, in case there's any sort of people that have this in the room, because I like to tell people this, because for some people, I was helping a guy out last week who had this. And when I told him I was this as well, it gave him sort of permission, as it were, to go and believe in himself. So I'm dyslexic, and as a result of that, I don't know if anybody else here is dyslexic, but I am. And unfortunately, during school, that I didn't particularly do well at school. And as a result, because I struggled reading and writing, not because I couldn't read or write, it was purely because for those that know what dyslexia is, we struggle to see words all together. They mix up and muddle up, etc. So I was always called the stupid one, the naughty one, the troublemaker. And the thing is, when you are told something enough, you become it. So I become that naughty boy at school, got into lots of trouble. Not going to go on to what happened, etc. But I basically come out of school and got into trouble. But the end story of this was I went into the British forces. I went into the army. And it was on the ranges while we were shooting one day that I got identified as being able to spot opportunity. And what I mean by that is that I was a very good shot, but I could see things happening or see things occurring around the bigger picture that other people couldn't see. So I got put forward to what they call a marksmanship in the British Army. And for those that don't know what that is, that's a sniper. Is what the Americans like to call it. We like to call it marksman. But it's got a glamorous name to it. It's not a particularly glamorous job, but it has a glamorous name to it. But it was during this course that I was identified with having dyslexia, and that is why I could spot things that's, like when, give an example, if you have these, not so much word searches, but these big picture collages, and they say, "Oh, spot this in here," my eyes could see it straight away. But more importantly, because I had dyslexia, he had a problem, and that problem was that I needed to divert from the attention that I couldn't read. So I used to come up with solutions to that problem as a kid, as a very early age. I was always creating solutions, which made me, I suppose, a natural entrepreneur, because us as entrepreneurs, right, we are problem. So that's what I did. Come out of the British Army. I got quite badly injured and had to come out. I drove lorries for a while, but ended up becoming an estate agent. And I was actually a very good estate agent. I become really good at it. Within the first year, I became senior negotiator. Within year 2, I become branch manager. Within year 3, I become area manager. So I was quite good at what I did. And in that time, I met what is still my mentor today, but this gentleman who's still probably one of the richest men I'll ever meet, billionaire, owns probably a whole town in the local near to me. But he taught me a lot of things about property. He taught me how to flip properties. He taught me how to spot opportunity where I could add value. So I started flipping properties while I was an estate agent, to a point where I had quite a lot of money in the bank. And I wanted to then buy into the company that I was working for, because I had some really good ideas how we could push it forward, because they was quite behind in the time. And they said no. And I was like, why? I'm like me leading salesman. I earn more than you guys that are directors, you know, as a salesman. But their point was that you are too valuable to us as a salesman. You've told us, you know, you're too valuable as a salesman. So I was like, okay. So I got a bit of paper and just wrote on it, I'm leaving, and walked out. Now, they treated me absolutely horrendously. They badmouthed me to the other staff members. They stopped my commission. They literally took the car away from me on the spot. You know, when I put a lot of service in, I expected a bit of loyalty back, and they just didn't give that to me. So that gave me, I would say, the ignition, the fire to go and do it myself. So I literally went and started my own agency. I grew that agency to be #1 agent in the local area, holding 45% of the market share within 12 months. I then went on to open numerous branches, had 64 staff. I had a mortgage centre, I had a surveying centre, or a solicitor centre, and a lettings side as well. However, in end of 2007, 2008, we had quite a big recession. And, you know, I don't mind admitting it, I nearly lost everything as a result of this. And the reason being is because I'd earned so much money so fast that I wasn't used to it. And the reason why, guys, is because, and I would say all of us on here tonight, none of us have been financially educated, right? None of us. And if you can all shake your heads, I can have a look. None of us have been financially educated. And as a result of that, because I earned so much money so fast, I had what we like to call in the investment world, the lottery mentality. Money comes so quickly, and I spent it very quickly. I had flash cars, nice watches, I had everything. But the trouble, what I did was I didn't have anything in reserve. So when the hard times come, I found it very difficult. But I'm the type of person that won't give in. I'm the type of person that won't let things fail. And I carried on persevering. I carried on paying staff. I was going without myself. I never told my wife what was going on. And as a result of this, guys, I nearly had a nervous breakdown because I didn't talk about my issues. And then one day I turned to the wife and said, this is what's happened. We're about to lose the house. Cars have been taken. We're about to lose this. We're about to lose that. And she said, well, why haven't you told me before? And I think it's male pride thing. I was just like, because I knew I could do something. She said, well, you can't because you kept it all in. And as a result of that, you're just fighting yourself. And she sort of said, right, listen, go and do it. Do what you do best. It's okay. You can do this. So literally that was what I needed. I went then out and I turned that company round, and I built it to probably 5 times the size that it originally was. And I sold that company 2 years ago in May for most people would say a life-changing amount of money. Sold out to a big company. I sold the shares rather than the company, so I was eligible for entrepreneurial tax. Yeah, I'm living happily ever after. No, it doesn't go that easy because I'm an entrepreneur. But that was what it was. But the reason, what kept me in the game, well, back then, what kept me in the game was the strategy called rent to rent. And at the end of 2000 or middle of 2008, where I really had to dig in tight, we had a lot of properties sitting around empty, 4 or 5 bedroom houses. And we had already invested in some HMOs. So I said, look, to my business partner at the time, I said, mate, we've got all these empty houses. What if we rented them? And bearing in mind, all this time ago, guys, rent to rent was not a strategy. Yes, it has been around, but actually rent to rent has probably been around. One of the oldest strategies in the world, by the way, guys, if any of you don't know that. Been around for hundreds of years, but it's just now become sexy, right? So I then said, right, if we, start, renting these properties and doing what we do in HMOs, surely we can make some money. And he was a little bit nervous by this. So I said, look, let me just do one. We started doing one, absolutely smashed it. So the house that we took on, we already rented from the landlord. Our management fee would have been £100 a month. But all of a sudden, we was getting just under, or in some cases over £1,000 a month property per property profit. And he was like, this is really good. Can we do this with a few more? And I was like, I reckon we can. So literally, we started taking every property on that we could. Then we started reaching out to other agents, which at first of all was a little bit skeptical because we was another agent. But we said, look, we have no interest in your landlords. You can add this as a service to your services already, but we'll just take it off you. And we started taking other properties on to grow where we are. And actually, rent to rent, I have to say, guys, completely saved my business. But why did I nearly go bust? So one is because I didn't understand money, I didn't understand finances, and I never diversified. So that then started me thinking, actually, what happened in 2008, was that so bad? Well, I don't actually believe it was. I believe it was a lesson, and it was something that was meant to happen to me to teach me more about business and to make me really delve deep into business and finance and find out exactly why do the rich get richer. And I found out very quickly it's because they diversify and they understand compounding. So with that, I then went on and I started investing in different asset classes. I started investing in different strategies, and I started compounding everything I did to where we are now. Now I'm not going to walk outside, but certainly Chris has seen my house. I live in a very nice house. It's the house of many people's dreams. Out on the driveway, I have I've had and have on the driveway the cars of dreams. And that's not being me in the flash. What I'm trying to show to you guys, going back to me being dyslexic, if I can do it, all of you can do it. Because I'm nothing special. All I was someone that had a dream, had a vision, and did everything it took to go and make it happen. But more importantly, you don't mind me swearing, Aaron, but when the shit hit the fan, I then really looked deep into myself and looked deep into why I had failed to find the answer. And I found that answer, and then I did everything I could to make it better. Now, I would call myself, I'm still a property entrepreneur, but I invest in many different things. So I would probably call myself an investment entrepreneur because I like to invest in many different categories now, not just property, because I know that diversity is the absolute key in everything we do. So there you go. Thank you, Aaron. That's a little bit about me. And I'll leave it now. Over to you.
Yeah, no, awesome story. And I'm sure everyone appreciates, because it leads up nicely to obviously some of the questions. Now we've got a really good background, and it's nice to have a really in-depth understanding. And it sounds like the way you've built yourself up, to me, all it shows is there's a lot of hard work there. There was a lot of stress. There was nothing handed on a plate here. There's a lot of hard work.
Absolutely. And I think, and I find it quite funny when people call me lucky. I just feel like nutting them, if I'm honest. But when people call me lucky, there's no luck in my life whatsoever. People want to say, oh, I want to be like you, I want to be successful like you. Well, that's not going to happen in 12 months, guys. What you're looking at now is a 20-year success. Yeah. That's probably the best way. And most people will give in. Most people will give it 12 months at something. This is such hard work. Well, stay in a job then for the rest of your life. Because entrepreneurs, believe it or not, will work twice the amount of hours for less money. And that's a simple fact.
Do you know, I think we're going to have a lot of fun on this call, Justin. Good. And I've actually got, just quickly on, Paul, was that a question you had, or there was a yellow hand to me, it wasn't a blue one?
Clap.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, I've just learned yellow. Okay, yellow hand is a clap. Cool. Just learned that. Okay, so just on the questions, if anyone does have any questions, either pop the little blue hand up or just pop it in the chat and I'll read them out, and we'll do that as we go. But do you know, Justin, just what you touched on there is, I was working from a cafe earlier today, and during that period, my wife went off to meet a friend of hers, and my sister and her friend happened to be at the park. Anyway, they came over to say hello to me, and one of the first things my sister's friend said was, what do you do? And I tried to explain a little bit about it, and she didn't quite get it, to be honest with you. And I basically said just long hours, hard work, because she was trying to understand how I know some of the information I know. But when I said long hours, early starts, late nights, long hours, the first thing she turned around and said was, "Sounds like too much effort." Those were her exact words. So do you know what? She's destined to have whatever she has because she's not willing to put in the work. So I just like the fact that you've built up a really nice story there that just shows hard work. So rent to rent is going to be a bit of a hot topic during this conversation.
No problem.
Everything about it, what it can deliver, what it can do for someone, what it can achieve. So just want to start. I believe everyone knows what it is, but just real quick overview. You say it's been around for a long time. It's been called subletting, isn't it? Really, that's
so
where
subletting. It's been around for hundreds of years, and actually, it was mainly through landowners and commercial. So, a landowner would have lots of plots of land, and they would sublet that out to another farmer who then put his cattle on there or wanted to grow crops from there, and they would sublet it out to something else. Like one of the offices that I had, I was 14th on the sublet list. So it'd been sublet so many times on the way down on commercial. So actually rent to rent, subletting, lease options, whatever you want to call them, it's been around for absolute years. So in theory, guys, what it is, it's where you take a property or land, whatever it may be, but we'll call it a property for now. We rent that property. And then we can either do lots of different strategies within rent to rent, but in essence, we then re-rent that property out for a higher figure once we've paid the bills or whatever and paid the owner their rent or the landlord their rent. Whatever's left is our profit. That's for us to keep. So that's our fee or our profit, whatever it may be. But there are different strategies within rent to rent, but ultimately that's as simple as it is. It's not. What I see lots of people out there, lots of different trainers making it very, very complicated, and it's not that complicated. All you need to remember is the paperwork needs to be correct. Going back to when I first started, we did everything illegally, we did everything wrong, but there was no people teaching it back then. But we learned by our mistakes. We never did anything wrong. We just had the wrong structure, because ultimately you could build 10 rent-to-rent properties, 100 rent-to-rent properties that could in theory be worth quite a lot of money for a resale of the business itself. But if you have the wrong contracts in place, your business is worth zero. Yeah, your business is worth zero. So that's very, very important. The most important part of making sure it's legally structured in the correct way that everyone is safe.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Is a big part of this is compliance. Like you said, you can have all of these properties, you can be doing it, but if you're not compliant, it can all go tits up in a moment, right?
Correct.
Okay, well that's actually one of the things I will want to come to a little bit down the line. So, if someone wants to generate cash flow, and let's just say they've got a bit of money to start, the reality of rent to rent, what is the reality of rent to rent in your eyes? And I mean that in the sense of how easy is it to start from someone brand new, or perhaps they know about it, but they're looking to get involved because they know they've heard of the cash flow. We've all heard of the cash flow, right? But what is needed really as a package to go, I'm ready to go basically take
knowledge is everything. Without knowledge you can't and that's, I think, going back to the reason why I nearly lost everything in business, because I didn't have the financial knowledge. So actually you deploy that into rent to rent is knowledge. So knowledge of the paperwork, the contracts, the legalities of it is absolutely vital. And probably the biggest part is the knowledge of figures, because everything we do in life is about figures. So, and especially as an entrepreneur or a business owner, it's all about figures. We live in a world full of figures, and if you do not put enough figures in at the top end, you won't get enough figures out at the bottom end. And it's as simple as that. It's not rocket science, but to understand rent to rent, you have to understand the legalities of it. So the paperwork is absolutely vital. I see so many people, and here's the thing is, I see so many people using this phrase, yeah, but. So when I'm trying to teach people about rent to rent, or I've heard people ask me questions about rent to rent, and let's say for instance, they've got a property, and I'm like, well, no, that doesn't work. And they always come back and use this phrase, yeah, but if I do this, yeah, but if I do that, yeah, but if I, no, do the figures say yes or no? They say no, right? It's a no. It's as simple as that. You do not manipulate the numbers to satisfy your own ego. Does that make sense? You must make it, if the figures work, they work. If they don't, walk away. You can't manipulate figures in business. Yeah, especially not in rent to rent. You know, you'll see people like, oh yeah, but I could add another 20, 30% onto the room. Well, why? Why is your room so much better or different to anybody else's in there?
Yeah.
Well, you know, yeah, but. So ultimately, anyone can start. But the trouble you have, Aaron, is, and I'll say this in no disrespect to anybody on here, but 99% of people in business, full stop, and this is why not everyone is in business or entrepreneur, but 99% of people are not consistent enough.
Yeah.
So get your education, learn about the contracts, learn about the legalities, then learn about the figures, how to assess a deal, which is absolutely vital, because we don't want to be doing this for free. And most people, believe it or not, will do this for free just for a Facebook post or whatever. Oh, I've got this, you know, how much money is it making you? Well, it's not, you know, but it looks good, doesn't it? Well, no, it doesn't, because you're going to be bankrupt quite soon. So knowing your figures, so paperwork, figures. If you have finance, great. If you don't, you need to get yourself out there to raise the finance to get it. You know, and it's not impossible. You can start with nothing. There is no such thing, guys, as no money down deal. I want you to put this very, very clear, because you have to get your money from somewhere. But if you have no money, it doesn't mean you can't start. If you have no money, you can go and raise finance from someone that has belief in you. So how do you do that? Well, you go and raise your profile. You use people like Aaron, you use people like Chris Taylor to raise your profile, or you just get experience of how to raise profile on the social media platforms. You raise your profile, you tell everybody about what you do, and believe it or not, you will get offered money. Aaron knows this, he raises money same as what I do. You will get offered money just from a profile being raised. So they would be probably the key steps, is understanding it. Don't just jump in, get the paperwork, get the legalities right, understanding the facts and the figures. The sales process obviously is a big key, but that will come with education. But then just raising the profile to raise some finance if you don't already have it.
That's a really good point, and we're going to get to being a salesperson, Justin, because this is certainly a model I believe that you need to be a natural salesman or learn to be a salesman, just as everything. But you just touched on a really important point. This is a topic I've talked about with a lot of people on here. I've spoken about this with a lot of people on here, just looking at the room, is numbers. So you just said it. I've just jotted this down. Numbers give you the answer. And this can mean a lot of things, but you know, when you get that gut feeling, Justin, when you're doing numbers,
Yeah,
your heart's saying this isn't right, but your head's going, I need to make it work. But your actual gut has just, you know, that gut feeling, it tells you that it's not right. And whether someone's selling a deal, I've seen this as well, when people sell a deal or they're trying to make something happen, but they know the numbers aren't right, but they still hang on to it. And I had a conversation with someone who rang me to ask purely my opinion on a certain deal. They gave me all the numbers. I wrote all the numbers down. And I said, I think you know the answer, because they said, I've been chasing this for like 2-3 weeks. I've done the numbers. What do you think? And I could tell by the way they were talking, they knew the numbers weren't right. And I said, how much time have you spent on this? And he said, well, it's coming up to 3 weeks. I said, you spent 3 weeks too long on it.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew that about 2 weeks ago. So the numbers give you the answer. So I really like that. They do. Numbers don't lie.
Absolutely. And, you know, Chris knows this person I'm going to talk about now. I won't mention a name, but, you know, there's quite a well-known individual on the circuit and done extremely well for herself. She's absolutely smashing it. She's done brilliantly. And I mentored her all the way through this, you know, with me. I'm a business partner of hers now. She would come to me with deals and she'd say, what about this one? I go, no, it doesn't work. And she'd go, yeah. And this is what, yeah, but no, it don't work. And to a point where it was like, if you bring me another deal like this again, you will never ever have me answer the phone to you again. And it was as simple as that. And at that conversation we had, it was like a click of a finger. It was like, right, okay, now I understand exactly what you're talking about, because you're that brutal in your response to me just then. I know how important this is, because you don't have the figures right. Like what you said, like we said, the answer, the figures will give you the answer. If you don't have that at the very beginning, there's no point doing this. So yeah, absolutely.
Numbers give you the numbers. Real good point. I hope everyone tags onto that one and notes that down, because that's I think that's a really important point. Justin, this is a big question. I've had this a lot. I've certainly heard it a million times. I've seen it on videos. If someone were to start, whether that is, Paul's just popped in there. Paul, did you pop for sourcing? Is that a sourcing for rent to rent, or actually focusing on rent to rent for cash flow?
Sorry, there were two questions. Do you mean the one which I just popped in, which is quite lengthy?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, if you want to run with it, Paul.
Is that all right?
Yeah, run with it. Yeah, what's the thought?
I'll just read it straight off. But yeah, basically, I'm tempted to switch from sourcing for others, so sourcing flip deals or BRR deals for other people, over to rent for myself, purely due to cash flow and a bit of a change in direction of where I want to go with property, really.
Right.
But I can rarely find that the numbers work to the same levels as what some of the trainers out there will say. Do you tend to work on a typical risk reward element before you can say a deal is a good deal, or what's a shit deal? You know, so actually,
the general thumb and rule, Paul, is you work to around £100 profit per room. So if you've got 5 rooms out of a property, your minimum, absolute bare minimum you'll be looking at is £500 per calendar month.
Gross.
You know, you will see lots of trainers that will say, "Oh yeah, £1,000. You know, no money down, £1,000." Most of that's bollocks, mate. It's a big sales pitch to get you on. If you work your figures out on bare minimum of £500 per calendar month is where you need to be, you're not going to go a million miles wrong with that. In terms of how does that look compared to your sourcing business, I don't know how successful you are in your sourcing business. I would ask the question, you know, why you want to leave, how long have you given it in your sourcing business? Because going back to what I just said about jumping from one to the other, because, you know, actually rent to rent, and I'm not going to highlight this or make this sound any better than, is not a quick fix, mate. You know, it is very difficult out there at the moment to get the properties if you don't know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing, it's still difficult, but it's a lot easier. You know, out in that market at the moment, you are going to be up against people like my company and other people that are highly experienced in this area. We know exactly what we're doing. So I'm not trying to put you off, but what I'm trying to say is, by quickly switching over because it may suit your situation at the moment, might not necessarily be the best thing for you at the moment. I don't know. You have to sit down and really look at that yourself as an individual and go, right, okay, I'm earning this from my sourcing business at the moment. I want to earn this from rent to rent. And it might be a case, Paul, that you go, okay, listen, I can do both because I'm sourcing here and I can just source myself at the same time. And when I get a certain figure in rent to rent, and that's when I'll start to sort of ease things down. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's a good show.
Because, can I ask, how long have you been doing flipping property or sourcing properties for people?
Sourcing just about 18 months.
About 18 months. So why are you, are you all right for me to answer this from Aaron like this, yeah?
Yeah, fire away.
Cool.
Fire away.
So because I know, so why are you looking at something else? And it's not me. I'm just trying to.
No. The reason for it is that it's more. I want to try and retain a little bit of it, because the sourcing is pretty much I get the property, pass it on. You know, get the property, pass it on. I don't have any sort of retention with it in the future, and it pays me once. Whereas I'd like something to pay me over a period of time, and I've got more of a steady flow. Sorry, mate. I think, are you on mute at the moment?
Oh, let's have a look. Is that better?
That's better. Sorry.
Are you? Oh, I'll tell you what. Why put my hands over the speaker? Sorry. Are you sourcing? Do you source HMOs?
No. I source largely single lets.
Okay, well, maybe in your sourcing business, you know, and I'm just picked up on something you said there. You want to retain something. Rent to rent's great, but don't forget it is a control of a property rather than an own it and retain it. So one of the strategies that I certainly run is a JV partnership scheme where I find, or my company finds, HMOs, because that's my love, is HMOs. We then ask or speak to our investors, that armchair investors. You know, I don't like dealing with any investors that want hands-on stuff. I like only armchair investors. Yeah. We then speak to those investors about JVing with us in purchasing HMOs. So our deal is we do a 50-50 split. The investor puts the money in, hosts the mortgage, but we find the properties, then manage the properties, and we do them all up. So that's the 50-50 split. Now, you know, we've done 11 one year with JV finance. So none of our own money. And then what we do is we generally, like you, will try and source very, very good deals that then in X amount of time, we never put a time scale on this, because then you tie yourself into pressure. And I always want you to remember that you tie yourself into pressure. So we then will say, look, the exit plan of this, guys, is that we will refinance this property in X amount of time. We will continue to be JV partners because you will set a separate company up for that property. We'll continue to be JV partners on that property. But then what we'll do once we refinance, you can either have your deposit back, or shall we do it again? And very often what happens is, probably 9.9 out of 10, is we will say, Paul, great news, we've refinanced, we've got the deposit out, or very near the deposit. Do you want it back, or should we do it again? And what do you reckon they say? Let's do it again. Let's do it again. So that's so you don't need many investors to be able to do that. And believe it or not, if you have a good enough deal and you are a deal sourcer already, one, you've got investors on your list to start with. And secondly, all you've got to do is put a mail shot out. You're looking for investors to do this, a JV with. It's not rocket science. It's just thinking outside the box. And that might be an easier or quicker way for you to get, well, one, you've got a property that you own, so you're not actually renting it. Two, actually, if you buy a property and get it on interest-only mortgage, the interest, the more interest of that mortgage is very often a lot lower than a rent on a property, nearly half the cost in most cases. So your actual profit in the property is going to be much greater. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Ultimately, if you want to do rent to rent, that is also just as good, because there is no equity you're building in the rent to rent. But again, by using the right paperwork, etc., you can build a company that is worth money to sell if you want to sell it in the future. I've done it. But ultimately, figure-wise, absolutely bare minimum, £100, you know, bare minimum, £100 per room is your absolutely bare minimum. So a 5-bedroom should be £500 a month minimum.
That makes sense. So with those investors, would you look to purchase the property with their money, or is it a case?
So we do a 50-50 JV partnership, and that would be, you would be the investor, come in, you would put the deposit in and host the mortgage. We would then go 50-50 on anything else. We would source the property. We wouldn't charge them a fee necessarily, and then we would manage the property on their behalf as well. You know, and you would set a company up with them, so you're all covered.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, it's I live right near a sort of HMO hotbed, so it's a strategy which I would probably look at nearby as well. So thank you so much.
If you're sourcing, Paul, all you do is you download your HMO list, which is public register. You mail shot that weekly, monthly, whichever you want to do, until you've literally, you don't stop. Literally, we stick it onto doc mail. We have a reoccurring emails or letters that go out, and it's every other week is letters going out, because you can never have enough. And this is one of the things that, well, I was at networking events once. Someone said, "Oh yeah," and I used this thing. I nearly dropped them. They said, "Oh, you're lucky." I said, "Don't ever call me lucky. but let me tell you why you believe I'm luckier than you. And I said, last week or last month, how many letters did you send out? And they said, oh, I can't remember. The month before that, oh, probably about 10 or 12. The month before that, oh, I don't know. I said, right, this is my whole point. You have no idea of what you're doing, but let me tell you what I did. That month that you don't know, I sent 20,000. That month that you sent 12, I sent 20,000. That month that you said you don't know, I sent 20. Can you see what I'm saying? I was consistent in everything I did all the way through, and I never stopped. Just because something doesn't work, it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It means that sometimes I haven't given it long enough.
Yeah,
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I
awesome.
appreciate it.
Great question, great answer, Justin. Which actually leads me on to Kofi put in there, which is actually one of my next questions. But just almost like a quick firing question, Justin, just to move straight on to the next one. Is it best to start in a limited or a sole trading? I imagine a limited, but have you had people do one or the other, or is there a preferred?
Yeah, you can do. There is no real correct answer to that. The only correct answer to that, probably from getting the properties on the market, is a limited company. And the reason being is because if you're dealing with agents, and even to a degree, and this is what really I find quite amusing, they would, oh yeah, you know, we won't accept you unless you're a limited company. Well, okay, well, if it was me, I would want that person individual that I could go after them should it go wrong, as opposed to a limited company where it's only limited liabilities. But yeah, I would always say go limited, and for no other reason that agents will prefer it and owners will prefer it, that you're actually a limited company. That is really the only reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, isn't it? I mean, I've heard people say they preferred it in their own name, and like you say, people can go after someone in their own name. But limited company has the professional look, doesn't it? You can scale it, and it offers that bit of professionalism, bit of front.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So probably a question you get asked all the time, but we're going to ask it again, and I imagine this purely comes down to everyone's personal situation and how quick they want to scale. How much is needed for a good start? Does someone have 5, 10, 15? Kofi obviously put it there in the questions, but what's your answer?
So yeah, well, nothing is the answer if you can raise the finance. But a deal, your first deal is going to cost you between £5,000 and £7,000. You know, you've got to get it. If it's over if it's five or more people, you've got to get it licensed now. So you've got fire doors going in, alarm systems going in. You might have to pay deposits. And again, it really depends on the deal. Some agents might insist on 6 months up front because you're a new company. They might want to see a bit of commitment from you. I don't know. But I would say between 5,000 and 7,000 would certainly get you set up on your first deal.
Yeah. And where do you typically look? Because I know there are such sources to look as Open Rent, there's Gumtree, obviously there's Facebook, there's referrals. You know, the word of mouth is obviously one of the best ones that you can have. But if someone were to start, because I know agents could be tricky, you know, an agent to trust someone else who might look like they want to take their business is their like natural, you know, defense to think, you know, you want my business, you're trying to take a property off us and manage it. How do you, obviously you're very established now, but starting out, where would someone look? Open Rent, Gumtree, other avenues?
I think, you know what, that's a really good question. And I think it's all about rapport.
Yeah.
People buy people. And if an agent buys into you in the early stages, they're not going to be worried about you going after their landlords because you've built the rapport. Everything we do as a salesperson is about rapport, right? You know, everything you do, people will buy from people. Yes, you know, I'm a qualified NLP coach and master practitioner, and we can use all these little scary tactics to make you buy from us. But ultimately, you know, an agent will buy or let you have the property because they like you and trust you. You don't need many agents. And it's actually it's a cheaper way to get into the market because I don't need many agents at all to get properties. Once you've got it, they become your salesperson because you've got one good deal you've got to get over. So I would say agency is a really good way to get started, but the same as everything, Aaron, you have to build rapport. So you have to put the time in. You know, you're not going to walk into Aaron's estate agency and say, "Oh, hi, Aaron. You know, I'm here to do rent to rent." Now, that's right, that's subletting. And let's have all your properties, and I want your landlord's details. You're probably going to kick me in the face and tell me to get lost. But if I come in and start speaking to you, "Hi, I'm Justin. I'm a local investor in the area. You know, we help relocate people into the area, etc., etc." And you start building the rapport. You don't go, you know, here's the thing. Any of you hands up on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Right. LinkedIn absolutely does my nut in. You get connected with. "Oh, hi," is my response. "Oh, hello. We've got this for sale. Do you want it?" "No, I don't, mate. I have no idea you are," because there's no rapport being built. And it's exactly the same as anything else. And if you don't build rapport with estate agents, with landlords, the same thing's going to happen. They need to trust you. This is their property. So agents are very good. But if you're now looking for landlords direct, yeah, open rent, you know, land registry. If you don't want to deal with agents, you can find property, you know, people's details on land registry. We spoke about the HMO register. You know, that is public knowledge now. You can just download the HMO register, and you stick that into an Excel sheet, put that into DocMail, and send that out each month. You have Gumtree. A really good way still is look in the backs of papers, believe it or not, the local paper, because in the back of the local paper, we'll still advertise what we call the old boys. Yeah, these are the older people that are probably at the end of their HMO life, that perhaps don't want the hassle of it anymore, and either just going to want the hassle taken away, or they're going to perhaps want to sell it as well. So that's a really good way of doing it. We always use tradesmen. We use tradesmen a lot, because what do tradesmen do? Well, they go into properties on a daily basis, doing gas certificates, electricity, things like this, and just general maintenance. So that's another good way of finding landlords. And again,
just a quick one on that.
Online agent. Sorry, Aaron.
Just a quick one on that with the tradesman, because this ties into something else that I like to offer certain individuals, like in certain professions, is do you offer the tradesman like a bit of a fee? You know, if they able to spot
we do,
you.
We offer an incentive.
That's a good point.
You can't do that to agents because that's classed as bribery. But we offer a referral system to tradesmen if they pass a landlord's details to us, and we go forward to get that property. Then we will take it on. Ultimately, if you have some money to spare, you can do advertising, Facebook ads, all these things like that. If you've got a bit of money to spare, that is, and you want to really concentrate on your area like this, telling everyone what you do. Again, it's about raising your profile. We now get we use Facebook a lot, or used to use Facebook a lot. I don't really do it too much anymore, but we used to use Facebook a lot in just going through the rental forums, the rental groups, and see who's got what and what they've got available, and just say, "Oh, look, I see you'll always get someone bitching about a tenant or something. You go, have you thought of this option? Where there's no tenant, we are your tenant, and and this is what we're going to do."
Yeah.
So I think it's thinking outside the box, mate. I'm really thinking it's outside the box.
Well, it's like with everything, isn't it? A lot of people on here knows that certainly the way that I scaled a lot of my investors is that I just couldn't be going to the same event over and over again where I just wasn't gaining anything. So again, outside the box is something that had to be done. It almost forces you to the point where, when you need to achieve something, you need to go, what I'm doing right now isn't working. I need to look at other avenues. So no, I'm totally on board with that. What I'll do is let me come to Jay. Jay, did you want to ask a question there? I've just seen your name pop up a few times. Can Jay hear us?
Hi there. Thanks, Justin, for the value. Thanks, Aaron, for organising.
Hi, mate.
So Justin, I've started my journey sourcing in January, but sourcing rent-to-rents in June. So I've sourced 4 rent-to-rent deals organically, just using Spare Room. I'm now at the stage where I find in terms of my turf, it's getting a bit saturated just using spare room. And
You're lucky you've not been kicked off. You're lucky you've not been kicked off spare room. Well done.
Yeah. So now I've taken your sort of advice in terms of downloaded the HMO register. There's about 400 landlords, 400, 500 on there. Would you post monthly to them or weekly, like using like these colored envelopes, or would you use DocMail? What would
I use DocMail all the time.
Okay.
One of the things you'll always do is I'll always address it to the name. I'll always put private and confidential on there. You know, there's a lot for what people say. They want bright envelopes. They want scribble writing. They want this. They want yellow envelopes. It's all gimmicky, mate. People want to see that you're professional at the end of the day. Okay. That's my opinion. Okay, you're offering a professional service, so why are you going to spend something like that's been scribbled on? Yeah, I can see where it could sort of grab someone's attention, but so will if you do it in the right way. They will open something that says private and confidential.
Okay.
And if that is what is inside there is engaging enough to, you know, and this is going back, and this is old things, you know, one of the I sent 2 letters out. Yeah. One was actually written by me, and because of my dyslexia, I wrote it wrong. And at the end of the letter, it said it was meant to say it's a no-brainer. I wrote as in it's a no-brainer. Now, we got the response that we got from that letter was incredible, because everyone was ringing up saying, "Oh, can I speak to the Australian, please?" Because they was going, "Yeah, use blah blah blah," but it's a no-brainer. So they all thought, "Oh God, and it was funny." And the other one we sent we was a bit cheeky and tongue in cheek. We sellotaped to 10 pence coins to every letter that we sent out and said, "We're that confident in our service, we'll even pay for your telephone call." Now, it was just these little things. But what I'm trying to say is, if whatever is in that envelope is engaging enough, you'll get a call. Now, the reason why you have to do it monthly is because the month that you don't send it, Jay, is the month that Aaron is sick to death of tenants and wants to sack it all in. And you've missed that opportunity. Okay. Yeah, and that's the day, that's the month that you don't send that letter. Understood. So if you have 200, you could do 200 once a month, or you could pick areas out of that list and then rotate it. So this month is this one, that month's that one. And, you know, if you want to save, you know, sort of your cost down a little bit. Yeah. The minute the first thing I do is when we get one property, that a percentage of that profit will go straight back into advertising. Yes. No, you know, none of this, "Oh, I'm going to go out and treat myself to this now." It's straight back into advertising. And, you know, do not underestimate the power of it, because it's all about awareness. So, yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, but it's about being consistent, Jay. Okay. You've got to, you know, like what you're doing with your sourcing, you've just got to be, the message has to be every single month.
What's the best content in the letters? Is it a testimonial, or look at what I did for Raj, you know, this particular?
Yeah, I think you need to identify people's pain threshold. You know, what is their pain? So that would be, I'm sick and death of tenants. So you need to identify that no more tenants to worry about. You identify no more stress involved. You need to identify no more worries about non-payments of rent. You know, we offer a no void service. You offer about, "Oh God, I've got to fix that bloody drain again." So we can take care of maintenance. Because this all comes down to the right deal. If you get the right deal, you can include maintenance into that deal as well. So, you know, you want to look at why landlords would be considering using you in the first place. And that's because many of them will be feeling X or X or X. Peace of mind, you know. So, yeah, that's the type of thing that you should be putting in that thing, is really identifying why they would be wanting to call you in the first place. And the reason, you know, like what I said, you know, those lists that I've just given you there.
Last question, last one. In terms of finding serious people to buy these rent-to-rent deals, because I've been co-sourcing that at the moment in terms of, you know, finding people who have got investors. what's the best way to find rent-to-rent people that want to invest in it and qualify them rather than bring them the deal and they're like,
yeah. Well, you
Yeah,
can,
take the
you
deal.
can build yourself an investor list up.
Yeah.
I generally think the thing, if you have an investor list, you need to work that investor list on a daily, weekly basis. You know, one of the things that I'm absolutely shit hot on is working my investor list.
Okay.
I know who's cold, who's warm, who's hot. Yeah, I know who's going to do what at any one time. So with rent to rent deals, those individuals are quite like, oh, 1 minute they want to do it, next minute they don't. I know exactly where you're coming from. So generally, there's so many groups on Facebook, and you know, for rent to rent deals, there's so many groups on Facebook. But one of the things that and bearing in mind, Jay, I run some of the biggest rent to rent groups out there. So if you put a shitty deal in, you're not going to get approved. But what I want to see in a deal that's coming up, is it advertised properly? Not one of the things I hate seeing is list builders and putting false info out to get lists. I do not like to see that. I like to see value. So what I mean by that is when you advertise a deal, you advertise it, you put a PDF on it. Obviously, you don't have to put the address and that on, but you put the PDF, right? This is the deal. So everyone can see it. Everyone knows that's a good deal. And what's going to happen is you're going to create urgency at that point. Yeah. And you're going to get lots of people start calling you rather than, oh, I've got a deal that's going to make £1,000 a month. Do you want to have a look? Well, prove it to people that you've got this deal. Show people that you understand the figures. Show people you understand how to analyze a deal. Give people real information, not made up figures. You know, we see it all the time. I'm just helping a guy at the moment that, you know, I'm not going to name the deal sourcing company because it's not fair, but this guy is probably going to lose £200 or £300 a month every single month, and he's paid £6,000 a deal. Scandalous.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think key points out of that as well, Jay, and obviously what's Justin is, you've kind of touched on a lot of what I believe in, Justin, is the trust. As Jay, as you, someone who's sourcing and wanting to sell it, as any new investor, and certainly what I see a lot, and certainly the way that I'll always feel about stuff, I don't know about you, Justin, as well, I'm sure it's the same, but you want to trust that new someone. You want to trust that someone who's bringing the deal, you know, and ultimately trust will then equal the investor, right, Justin? I mean, a lot of you said about knowing exactly where your investors are at any one time, and I can really relate to that because almost like seasonal, I know where my pool of investors, what they're feeling, what they normally do. You see patterns of what they like to invest in, so forth, blah, blah. But ultimately it does come down to the trust, but that's all the people, you know, the people skills, the likability, the salesman in you, building that rapport. So, but trust is really at the heart of it. I really feel the trust is
massively
where you start.
People won't buy a deal off you, or they won't give you money if they don't trust you. You know, and people, what's the best way to describe this? People are too quick to jump into bed with you, right? So and what I mean by that is that people are too quick to ask for money or to offer you a service or whatever, rather than spend the time to find out what you need as an individual. And that's probably one of the key things, Jay, that I specialize in, and probably Aaron will do the same, is I identify that investor's needs. You know, and probably one of the reasons why I was a really good estate agent, because rather than just sending you any 4-bedroom out because you've identified that you want a 4-bedroom, I will know what type of 4-bedroom you want, what area that needs to be in, and the reasons why. So when I call you, it will be, Jay, I found this property. It's in this area. It's near the university. It's near this. It's near that. I've got all the key points that you've been asking me for, rather than just sending you any generic rubbish out. And that's why, you know, as a salesman, the person next to me on the desk here, his ratio was 10 to 1. You know, so for every 10 viewings he had, he'd done one viewing. Mine was pretty 50-50. Mine was 2 to 1 every single time. I didn't do many viewings for a sales ratio. And that's exactly the same in what I do now, even with investors. If I don't believe, I was talking to Aaron earlier on, and I, you know, I firmly believe this. If I don't believe that I can help you, and if I don't believe that I can generally make you money and make me money, by the way, this is not all about making the investors money, because it has to be for me as well. But if I generally believe that none of that can happen, then I will finish that conversation quite quickly, and be honest and say, look, I'm probably not the right person for you. And you get a lot of respect for that. Some people don't like it because, oh, what's up with me? You know, I want no, but our values do not align. It's as simple as that. But there you go. Thank you.
No, and that's a really important point, is when not to accept investment. And I put up a post some while ago now, Justin, and I can't remember what I quoted it, but basically the summary of the quote was not to waste investors' time. And what I meant by that was, and I put it in the description, is that if you have a criteria from an investor, don't send them everything that you might make a buck on. You know, if you think you can make some money, don't send it. Don't blind CC every investor hoping that someone picks it up, because if 3 or 4 of those guys do not want to see that, they're going to soon get fed up and say, unsubscribe me, because you've sent me nothing that I've asked for. So you've got to value what the investor wants. But when you do find it, you know, really, really build it up and prove and showcase it that it is the deal that you believe it is. But going back to what we originally said, is not to sell it just because you need to make a fee. You know, their numbers have to be right. So really good points there, Justin, and great question, Jay. So the compliance side of it, I just want to touch on that very briefly. I know it can be a very in-depth discussion, and we could probably be talking about it forever, but just for someone starting out or someone wanting to dip their toe in before they start parting with money or looking at properties, to understand the compliance is a really important part, right? So where could someone perhaps go to just gain the information that they need to tick off their own boxes?
Is this for deal sourcing or rent to rent?
The rent to rent, yeah.
Okay, so rent to rent. Well, there's a ton of information on Facebook. You know, there's a ton of information if I train you. There's a lot of information, full stop. As in regards to rent to rent compliance, you just got to make sure that, one, you have the right paperwork in place, and making sure you have the right contracts in place for you, the landlord, the agent, the tenants. If you are taking HMO, you need to understand, does that property is in an Article 4 area, which is a planning direction that stops the spread of HMOs. If it is, you need to address that issue. Does the property require a license? You know, is it, and look at the different types of licenses that are out there. You have mandatory licensing, additional licensing, and selective licensing. Is there anything like that in your area? So you need to understand that, and if it is in that criteria, what does it take to get that license? For that information, you're better off speaking to the housing sector of your local council. They will tell you exactly what you need, what license needs in place, where and when and why. When you come to get the property and you apply for your license, the housing officer again will come out to the property, and they will give you what's called a schedule of works. That will be everything detailed in the property that you need to do. If you follow that to the letter, they can't turn you down for a license. You know, they can only turn you down for a license if you have sort of criminal records, etc., or you're seen to be in a bad landlord. Compliance-wise, well, you need to make sure that you need all the right insurances in place. You know, there's a guy. You can probably find him on my Facebook friends, but I'm quite happy to give Aaron his name and he can pass it through to you guys. A guy called Richard O'Neill that deals with all the different insurances that you need to have, and he can do the whole lot for you in one hit. So you need to make sure you're protected like that. You'll need to be a member of a redress scheme. So that would be like the Ombudsman, etc., if you're taking deposits. You'll need to be registered with the TDS or the DPS and protect people's deposits if you are taking deposits. Yeah, so that's really about it. So all those information that you can find on the internet, or you can go and get trained by somebody, and they will tell you, you know, how to do it. I'm sure Aaron will tell you who the good trainers are out there. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most important part, isn't it? It's being compliant, because if you're not going to be compliant, what's the point? You know, whether you're sourcing, doing rent to rent, whatever it is you're doing, you need to be compliant, because it can all be taken away in a moment. So it's a really good, important point. I just wanted to cover that off with you, and just get a bit of an overview on what you need. So I want to just go back and touch on the raising of finance. I know that obviously you raise private finance to fund some of these deals which you've spoken about, and actually it's a conversation that we're having off camera. But you know, how do you go about? Because I could talk about the way that I do it, and I did my ebook and everything like that, and it's a subject I love, so I could talk all day about it. But how do you find and go and sort of showcase yourself in order to raise bigger amounts of funds, whether that's for rent to rent or you've got a project you want to do? How do you do it? Because obviously we're in conversation.
Yeah. So for me, you know, at this level here, it's all about raising awareness. It's about coming across as, here's the thing, I think you need to show your pure values, and you need to show that you're not just chasing money, and actually you are offering a service, a really good service. You know, one of the ways, you know, nowadays we're raising finance is via social media. You know, people know what we do. You know, one of the things that we did, we started an investor club up. That investor club literally would be a Zoom call like this, where we have like a couple of hundred people from all over the world on that Zoom call. And we would just talk about, so again, it's about adding value. We would just talk about diversity and different types of investment and different returns that you can get, and giving people options, raising awareness. So tell everyone what you're doing, showcase what you're doing. You know, like, you know, I think Chris is on here at the moment, and Aaron, you know, these are all good examples of what to do. You know, show people, you know, Aaron for doing investments, you know, Chris for doing social media. By showcasing what you're doing, people know me now for different types of investments, not just property. They know that I'm doing all sorts of type of investments. So now on a daily basis, I'm getting messages, you know, how do we do this? What are you investing in? And it's about the follow-up. So I never, you know, personally go in and say, oh, this is what I can get you. When can we do this? I like to do a bit of a fact-finding mission first. So, hi, Aaron, you know, what you're looking for, you know, what sort of returns. I like to understand people's risk profile, which is probably the main thing for me, understanding what someone's risk appetite is, because that will then determine what type of investment I put them forward to. But about getting them, so in going back into the old days of how we used to do it, well, that was literally, and this is no lie, I would go to the most expensive gyms. I would go to the most expensive sports clubs, the most expensive golf clubs, and I would look where the cars are, and I would head in there. If it's in a gym, I would then literally, and this is the honest truth, guys, I would then walk around that gym looking for the people with the most expensive watches. I know my watches, so I can tell whether they're fake or not as well. So I would literally wander around, and then I would just start a conversation. That conversation would never end in me telling them what I did. But one thing I'm really, really good at, and this is probably, and Aaron will understand this, because we talk about shooting and fishing and things like this. I'm a really good fisherman. So I'm excellent at what we call baiting the area. And that's exactly what I will do with my investors. I'll start baiting the area, and I'll put little teasers out here, there, and everywhere, to a point where I never have to tell an investor what I do. They will always come and ask me what I do. And the minute they ask me what I do is then when I tell them how I can help them.
Yeah.
Because once they ask you how to do it or what you do, you know that you've got them on the hook. You know that they are excited about something. They want to know how you brought that car. how you got that watch, why you never seem to be working. Yeah, they want to know all of that. They want a bit of the pie.
Do you know, it's so funny, Justin, just to jump in there.
Yeah.
Firstly, have you read my book? Because a lot of the ways
I can't read, mate.
Anyone that's gone over my book, let me have a look. I think there's quite a few people on here who probably picked up a copy of my book. But it's so funny because I'm almost listening to very similar. I mean, obviously we're speaking aside from all of this, but you know, we've got a few things in common, and it's funny because I see a lot of myself also, like in what you're doing and how you do it. So again, there are ways in my book that I originally sort of thought to myself, like, I've got to apply myself here because I picked up on things you've just mentioned. Can everyone still see me okay?
Yeah. Yeah, still there, mate. I think he's lost.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't see you, but carry on. Can you actually see me, or?
Yeah, I'm gonna write. Yeah. Can you hear us, James? Aaron, sorry. Oh, hang on. I'll write you a little thing.
I can hear you. What I will do is let me just make you the host, Justin.
Okay.
Let me make you the host.
There you go. All right. I'm the host now, right? Get rid of it.
I've just made you the host. Okay.
Is that right? Can you see it now, mate?
We're good?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yes.
Okay. Worst case scenario, I will disconnect, and then Justin, you'll be the host, and I will. I'll just come back. But as long as you can hear me now, that's all good. You were just, we were just touching on that. The sales and the psychology of it is something that you seem to be very good at as well. And what I liked what you just said is that you're almost pitching your business and what you do without having to pitch it openly to these investors. But what you were doing is you were sowing the seed. So there was this fire that started burning and they wanted to know more. And then your hard work was done. And I've done something, and I still do something very similar, where I don't have to openly pitch it now because I've already sown the seeds. The questions are being asked on the investor front. I've just got to answer it now. So I like what you're doing, and I think it's very similar to what I've done. So I like the way you're doing it.
Yeah.
So great, and that ties into the salesman techniques that you've obviously got naturally. Have you got, just on sales, have you got any sort of tips or recommendations or anything that you've done that's helped increase your salesman ability?
I think, do you know what? Yeah, that's a really good question, that one. So I'll give you an example of a good salesman and a shitty salesman, yeah? So a shitty salesman will watch you speak and not listen to a word you say. A good salesman will listen to what you say. It will take notes and will identify what you need, because if you then provide what you need, there's no sales involved. I think probably the biggest tip with sales is knowing when to shut your mouth. Most people will talk themselves out of a deal. I think if you another good tip is believe so deeply in what you do that you'll be able to sell it. Believe in what you're selling. I'm probably one of the lucky ones, perhaps like you and I can sell anything, whether I like it or whether I don't, I can still sell it, I think. But the key issue is listening. I think if you listen, you'll hear for the buying signals, you'll hear that what they want, you'll be able to supply what they need, and when the buying signal comes, you'll be able to shut them down or close them down. And most people don't know when to listen, and then they don't know when to shut up.
No, I totally agree. And what I would say on sales, I've put up a few posts on previous sales, but I also find that listening or reading a lot of books around sales has really sort of elevated my game, especially when it touched into the psychology of how sales actually works. It kind of puts you, a step of the game really in regards to being able to work out what someone's thinking at the right time when to mention certain investment pitches, you know, so when someone might be thinking to themselves, like, I've got a deal, but I don't know if this is the right time to pitch it. I think when you can elevate your sales technique and the ability to understand what, you know, what's the right time, I think it plays a huge part. From Michael.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I did have
So if I just
yes,
elaborate on that as well, Aaron, I think with sales, and one of the things that I do is you control the situation, you control the conversation. Now I done my, you know, and some of you guys might know this fella. I actually done my sales training with a guy called Jordan Belfort. And for those that know who he is the Wolf of Wall Street. And the strategy that we were taught was called the straight line strategy. And it's basically all about tonality, when to understand when you need to bring something. So it's basically a straight line strategy. So people will get to such an elevation that you'll never sell to them. So you have to bring them down a little bit. Someone will get a bit low that they're never going to buy to them. So you have to use your voice to bring them up. And you've probably seen me doing this today. When I get excited something, my tempo builds up. Yeah, so you're bringing people up, and it's called a straight line strategy, to a point where they are asking then if they can have that product or you know, the sale in effect becomes easy. You know, there's lots of different things. I would definitely say read up on sales. The more reading you do, the more knowledge you'll get. Learn about brain patterns, about why people buy, the decision making side of buying, why people decide they're going to buy at that point. One of the things that I did, you know, I invested in myself. I went and trained with Jordan Belfort. I became an NLP practitioner. I started understanding mirroring. So if any of you guys want to know what mirroring is basically when I start talking to you, I will start moving my hands around. You'll start, believe it or not, wanting to do the same. I'll cross my arm. You'll want to do the same. I'll scrap my thing. When I can see you mirroring, like Chris is doing it, when I can see you mirroring, then to a degree, I would perhaps then think, right, this is the time for me now to make that sale, because I'm in effect controlling your brain pattern. But there is so much information out there. Do you have to be a natural salesman? Yeah, I think it definitely helps. Can you learn to be a salesman? Of course you can. Of course you can. You can learn to be anything if you want to. Some people just have the gift of the gab. So people can sell without actually any training. They're just good at sales, full stop. But you know, one of the things that, as I say, is for me, you know, I always revert back to fishing. I think it's all about bait in the air. If you put enough bait out there, get people interested in what it is, you'll get a bite at some point. So, Aaron's moved location. Look,
I think he's frozen.
Has he frozen? Well, I'm
still sending him a message to log on for his phone.
Okay. So yeah, right. Okay. Well, guys, while I'm waiting for him, I can probably have a look at some questions. Unless any of you guys, the best sales book you've read, Aaron, reading or selling Grant. Yeah, a lot of people like Grant. I'm not a massive fan, if I'm honest. I'm not a massive fan of this all 10x bollocks. Yeah, it's too forced for me. I'm not a massive fan of it. You know, I've watched a lot of his videos, and I think a lot of them made up for YouTube, if I'm honest.
Well, dreamy bollocks, isn't it?
Yeah.
Apologies about that, guys.
There he is.
There we go. Absolute nightmare with the signal. Doesn't happen often, but it does happen. So there we go. Beauty of Zoom and signal. But no, we just obviously just missed the last sort of 30, 40 seconds of that. But sales, sort of the point I was touching on there, Justin, it is such a huge part of being able to raise finance. And it's something that I learned that when I started to originally listen to sales book, and Zoe, I saw you pop it up there, but I'm going to share, especially in my accountability group, but I'll pop up a couple on my story, is that I found that when I was originally listening to sales book, I thought, should I be listening to this for investment? And I thought, you know, it's for the guy on the call center. But you soon, when you start listening to sales books, or you start reading them, you actually think, actually, I can apply this to everything. Or why haven't I been listening to sales or learning about sales a long time ago? Because it's more psychological, I find. there are some techniques that I still use to this day that are very reverse psychology, and that came from the sales books that I read and listened to. And ultimately, when you tie that in with raising investment, it's brilliant. So
yeah, I think that what you've just said there is that's, you know, one of my techniques I use when raising finance, you know, is to take the ball away scenario. But that's what we, you know, and I'll literally, okay, well, obviously you're not the right investor for me, and I'll take that away from you. And then, you know, to a degree, I won't even respond to you for a little while. I really want you to come back to me. And when I do contact you back, you're like, yeah, really want to do this. So, you know, I didn't mean it like that. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Let's crack on then. So, but here's a question for you guys. Who are the best salespeople in the world? See if any of you can answer this. And if Chris, you don't answer. If you've heard me speak, Chris, you don't answer this one. Who are the best salespeople in the world? No? Well, I should tell you.
We got
children.
Children.
Children. Yeah. Children can sell you anything. Sell you anything. And just watch how they do it. Yeah, just watch how they do it. They ask why loads of times. You know, if you're not getting what they want, why? Why is that then? You know, they're asking all the time to a point where they will make you feel guilty. I'm not buying them. They can get anything out of you. But just watch the way they are persistent. And I'm not saying you start, you know, shouting why at everyone, but not giving in by just giving enough content. And again, well, like I'm saying, baiting your area up where people want to come to you and buy off you. That's
totally true. Do you know, it's funny, and we recently went to the Harry Potter studios, and my son wanted a cloak, and the original answer was no. It was no about 5-6 times because it was just, the price was just ridiculous. But the why kept happening. The why was, you know, what ended up being the reason that I went, well, do you know what, let's do it. And we ended up getting the cloak. But no, I really do. I mean, look, what I want to touch on just before we finish, Justin, it's been brilliant so far, is money management tips. How do you, without going into your finance, but how do you money manage? What are you kind of proud of, or, you know, that you touched on earlier, and I'm a big fan of this, is a safety net. You touched on that at the beginning about having those reserves. But what is your money management system? You know, what are you proud of that you've got secure, and that, you know, you pay yourself first? Or how do you money manage, and how is it a smart money management system?
So what I learned very clearly was about compounding, and I wouldn't say about saving, because I think, you know, if we are taught how to save like we was from school, you never make any money at all. But using that money to invest. So I will invest. So out of everything that I earn, I have a percentage that I will invest in assets or other investments that I will know will give me X return per year, per month, whatever that may be. That might be property, that might be funds, that might be whatever it seems, might be watches, it might be whatever it seems right for that. So I will have a pot which I call my investment pot. I will have a pot that I invest in myself. That's a massive must for me. Invest in yourself. I then have another pot. So I split everything down, Aaron, into different sections. So I have my investment, I have my living, I have my thing. And then at the very end of all of that is the money that I can play with. Yeah. So that is first. Once I have all that criteria finished and ticked, whatever is left then. So it's a bit like a business to me. It should be, you know, it's a bit like a house.
Yeah.
Whatever is left over is then my bit to play with.
Yeah.
Now over the years, I've allowed compounding to the compounding effect to do its best. So actually, what's left for me now is quite nice. But that's only come from years of doing what I'm doing. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's where most people lose sight, and that's where most people, because they want which is human nature. They want instant gratification, don't they? They want to have it all now. They're not prepared to wait. And ultimately, the only way that's going to happen, if someone dies and leaves you money, or you win the lottery, you know, no matter what you do, you have to build it up. So yeah, different pots. So definitely your investment pot where you buy assets. So I don't just invest in the funds. I literally, when my funds are worth, so in my fund, so if you now go really deep into it, I have different pots within my investment pots.
Yeah.
So within my investment pots, I have one pot that is purely for compounding. I have another pot that, to a degree, is my safety net of income that I will take out yearly that will cover me if I need it, or will pay for holidays, etc. I then have another pot that will go up each year, and I will withdraw from that each year, and I'll go and buy assets with the profits. So the pot particularly never goes down, but I'm buying assets with the profits that I take from the pot. So it's not all about having the cash. That's great, but I like to have assets, because the assets I can then pass on to my family, etc. You can pass cash on, by the way, but the assets will last them a lifetime. So, go on.
No, go on. No, sorry. Carry on, Justin.
Yeah. So I basically have investments within investments within investments. That's at probably a different level to where a lot are now, but that's ultimately what I do. But you have to make sure that your investment is safe, then you've got everything covered, and then what's left over is your money that you can play with. I do believe in rewards. I think it's important to reward yourself. You know, ultimately, because if you don't reward yourself, what happens is, at the end of all of this, you're like, why am I doing this in the first place? So you have to reward as well.
Yeah, like, what's the purpose? No, I do that, and I do a very similar thing. And what I like what you said, actually, which I don't hear a lot of people say, I'm really sort of anal when it comes to money management. I really enjoy it, probably more than the norm as well. But I like what you said about treating it like a business. I think that's really important, and that's kind of what differs people in regards to their money management. And what also, I don't know if you, just a quick point, with investors, do you know what I see a real difference? If I talk to an elderly gentleman or lady who is an investor, or someone who is more 21st century, very kind of gratification now, but has the cash, the two differences that I will see personally is the old school investor knows compounding. So when they hear of a 1, 2, or even 3 year term, they don't even make a sound. They know that it will take that 3 years to generate some really good income. Where when I've put certain products to the new school investor, they're very much, not that they're poo-pooing it, but they do question, is there not a shorter term? Can we not do this over a 6-month period? It's almost like they want it in the short term, whereas the old school investor doesn't even question a 2-3 year term.
They want instant gratification. Everyone wants to be millionaire tomorrow, don't they? And you know, it doesn't happen, not unless you get left it or you win the lottery, and then you will not be financially educated. You'll probably lose it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think, do you know what? I when I do some talks every now and then, and or used to, and I used to say this on some of the talks I used to do, and I call most people. I ask them in the audience, are you an investor or are you an ATM watcher? And what I mean by that is, are you someone that has the money sitting in the bank that will just go to the bank or click on your phone every day and have a look at how much money you've got, or will you put it to use? For me, I'm not a person that is about having tons of money in the bank. My money is spread between different investment classes, because ultimately in the bank, your money's just going down every year. You know, you're on a lose-lose situation by just storing money. And so for me, I would rather put that money to work. And of course, you know, that is scary to most people. But I truly believe if you do your research, you are educated in investment and you understand risk management, I think is the key. Risk management. What is your risk profile? You can't go wrong. You really can't, as long as it's, it's an educated investment rather than a guess or a punt.
No reward without risk. No, it's a valid point. Right, I want to quickly jump to Michael. I see Michael's put a question. So, top 3 differences between your money mindset before and after 2008, when you nearly lost everything. So, obviously, there has been a big change. What are your main 3 changes or differences?
Right. So money mindset. Wow. So, okay. So, yeah. So before 2008, I spent every penny. I had a bloody good time. And would I change it? No, I wouldn't, because I had an absolutely wicked time. I cannot deny that. However, I had no, like we just spoke about, how to structure your finances now and how to make it happen. None of that was in place. So now I do not like money sitting around. I believe in what they call, well, I certainly call it, I don't know whether it's a thing or not, the wheel. And that is, you make money work. So it's a forever cycling wheel of money investment. So if we talk about the funds, when money in one of the funds is made X, I will then revert that into property. That property will then be refinanced. It will go back into the fund, which will then earn X, and so on. So that's one wheel of investment.
Yeah.
I will then take money out and I'll go and buy another asset, because most people will think, well, if I go and buy that, for instance, then I've got no money left. Well, that's just short-sighted, isn't it? Because if it's a good investment, then, like what I've try to show people, we can either refinance it or, it's a great investment, full stop. Like one of the watches, for instance, I've just got, it books, it's not showing off, guys, but it books about £7,000-8,000. Today is probably worth about 28.
Yeah.
And that's probably happened in about 12 months. So it's just about smart investment. It really is just about smart investment. So for me, it was, what's different then to now is I wasn't financially educated before 2008. 2008 forced me to understand finances. It forced me to really revisit why the super rich are super rich.
Yeah.
And I found out very quickly, every single one of them all had the same traits. And it was, they paid themselves last, apart from they invested. And then they took the rewards when the rewards were there to take.
Yeah. Do you find as well, just to finish on, Justin, because I think it's important, it's an important point that I sort of try and always remind myself, is that there's a real difference between a retail investor and the risk that is involved with that. So, for example, you use investment to work and scale portfolios, your business that you're running now. Do you find that there's always that level of extra risk when working with someone who isn't financially up to date and actually understands the model? Because I try and work that out. I try and calculate that decision that obviously we're going to be talking about something separate ourselves, but your money mindset, so am I, but I try not to get in conversation with those who have perhaps got some money, but they're not financially up to date with actually the risks and rewards.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I do is, and this, you can take this away, Aaron, as well. What I always, and you might already have this, what I always do is, the first conversation I ever have with anybody is, I ask them a very clear point. I ask, Aaron, how much money are you willing to lose? I ask them, how much are they prepared to lose in 1 year?
Yeah.
Because what I can do then is I can work back from that in different categories and showing them, right, if this is how much you could wake up this time next year and you've lost, this is what we need to do. And if you're happy with that, then this is the way forward. If you're not happy with that, we need now to find out what you're happy with, because it's always about, I don't talk about necessarily what I can get you. I will talk about what I can save you, i.e., you have to talk about risk. So I always say, what can you afford to lose? What I tend to find also with smaller, and believe it or not, actually asking someone for £1 million is easier than asking someone for £10,000. And the reason being, someone with £1 million to invest has probably 10 million spare. Someone with £10,000 is probably their wages.
Yeah.
And that's a very different kettle of fish that you're dealing with. You're now dealing with someone that if that goes belly up, they are not going to eat, as opposed to if this goes belly up, you know, and with the risk profile we'll put in there, then they, which is for me is between 5 and 10%, depending on investment, that they could potentially, you know, walk away with you know, £100,000 loss or whatever. That's not really going to do them that much harm. Whereas someone that can only afford to lose, you know, can only afford to put 10,000 in, really can't afford to lose that much.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
no, I agree.
Yeah, I basically work back I always work backwards. So, right, you tell me not how much you want to earn. That really doesn't interest me. Tell me how much you can afford to lose, and then I will tell you what investment I can do for you.
Yeah. I like that way of, and as Paul just said there, risk profiling. So very similar to what I do before I start committing time and effort to perhaps work with someone. So I like that approach that you do there, Justin. So obviously, just to time wise, just to finish off, Justin, it's been awesome having you, and I can really relate to you in how you've kind of come through this story and the hard work that's been put in, which I like and I admire. Just to finish off, Justin, for everyone, have you got any book recommendation, something that stuck out to you, something that you've learned, or, you know, something you've watched or listened to?
See, you guys might not like this, you might like it, you might not. I think Donald Trump's an absolute bloody genius. And his book is phenomenal, The Art of the Deal. If any of you guys have seen that book, read the book or listened to it, whatever, no matter what you think of the man, he's a pure businessman. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he's probably what is needed over there. He's a bit, you know, all right, don't take his advice on injecting yourself with disinfectant, but he's a businessman. He's definitely, he knows what he's up to. But his Art of the Deal, in the book, it tells you about how he structures his business, how he structures his meetings, to a point where it's very similar to what I do. If you have, and actually Chris will tell you this, and watch his face change in a minute, because Chris has been in meetings with me and he knows after X amount of minutes I go off. You've got X amount of minutes with me. After that, I literally shut off. Is that correct, mate? Yeah, literally after X amount of minutes, I'm done. I really can't be bothered with that meeting anymore. And it's not because I don't like you, it's just because of how my brain works. And Donald Trump is the same. So he structures meetings for X amount of minutes because he knows, right, come with me with this. Don't come with me with, you know, all, you know, this lovely stuff and whatever, but come structured. And I just thought how he looks outside the box. And, you know, it doesn't matter what you think of the guy. Look at him from the point of view that he's a pure genius in the respect of business. So I would say, as a book wise, The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump.
Awesome. Yeah, I've listened to that one, and it's a brilliant book. And I've listened to another book, can't think what it was, but these books are brilliant, and the lessons you can take from them are, you know, they're brilliant. And especially the way that, I can't remember what the book was, where he was structuring deals when he was in huge, just billions worth of debt, and he was still getting the bank to pay for his own deals. It was just
it's incredible. And then
just
when
leverage.
He was selling at the air above buildings. You know, it's mate, just outside the box, mate. Yeah.
Well, brilliant. I really appreciate that, and I know obviously we've gone slightly over, but thanks for everyone who has stuck around. I know many had to go, but Justin, it's been a pleasure to have you on, and I'm so grateful that you came on. And again, to everyone that joins on Fridays, I've got to change obviously the times, because I know there's a lot more people now that are struggling to sort of make the time, but we're going to end up putting these back slightly later to accommodate for everyone. But Justin, it's been awesome. If people want to reach out to you, are they all good too on social media?
Well, if I've got any money. No, I'm not joking. No. Yeah, of course you can, guys. Literally, awesome. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. It's pretty much what I'm on. So yeah, if you want to say hello, feel free. You'll always get a response back from me. I'm not one of these stuck up ones that don't respond. I'll all respond to you. So, but it's been great seeing you all.
No, I appreciate that. And I appreciate everyone joining again. And I hope everyone's taking something away. And again, next week, we've got a great guest, which I will announce on Sunday. And Justin, again, just big thanks. And obviously, we'll be speaking anyway in the coming week. And I hope everyone has a great weekend. And Chris, I'll probably end up talking to you as well. So awesome. Cool. Appreciate that, guys. And I'll speak to you all soon.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. See you, boys.
Thank you so much.
Justin, take care, mate. Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Cheers.